Today we'll have the great privilege of visiting the birthplace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead who was unborn. In Queen Kunti's prayers, it's one of the inexplicable, contradictory natures of the Supreme Lord is he who is unborn takes birth. And then she starts to offer different reasons. Some say that he who is unborn takes birth for this reason, that reason, the other reason, the other reason, the other reason, and finally she concludes it's to reclaim the souls in this world and bring them back to Him. He does it personally. He can do it through someone else, but He does it personally. So we're going to visit the place where He was born as we visit the place where He left. And this is all Leela, being born, leaving, and everything in between. Reflecting back on something that we discussed the first morning. Now I'm just going to speak on it again and expand it a bit. There are lessons, particularly codes of Dharma, because this is the feature, the primary feature of Ram's appearance is the ideal king. So that means, for sake of upholding Brahma's word, Brahma explained to the demigods, he was so overconfident of himself, he didn't ask for protection from human beings, considering them no more significant than pieces of straw. So Lord Vishnu shall appear as a human being. So He appears as if a human being, the son of Dasarath, and blended within Valmiki Ramayana are these specific, explicit expressions of, was discussing the first morning of these examples of Dharma, how to fulfill the duties of life. You know, amongst cultured people, not so many cultured people remaining, but amongst cultured people, duty determines. Not likes, dislikes, or something. Duty determines your choices and what you do and the direction your life moves in, and duty determines these things. So, for those of us that are followers of Srimad Bhagavatam, and we're introduced to Srimad Bhagavatam primarily by the Bhaktivedanta purports, Srila Prabhupada's presentation of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is in the line of disciplic succession, following all of our acharyas. There's this verse, so we're going to discuss a philosophical and practical point. Some of you who have heard Prabhupada's lectures or have read his books, or both, you know this verse from the 11th canto, Devarshi Bhutaptra Nrinam Prachinam. You've heard the verse? Na Kinkaro Nayam Rani Charajan Sarvatmana Yak Sharanam Sharanyam Gato Mukundam Parihritya kartam. Translation: anyone who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, the giver of liberation. That's Krishna. Giving up all kinds of obligations and has taken to the path in all seriousness, owes neither duties nor obligations to the demigods, sages, general living entities, family members, humankind, or forefathers. So Devarshi Bhutapta, this is the persons who one is no longer bound to obligation or debt. I remember hearing one of the many times I heard this verse, Prabhupada took 10 minutes and described, as soon as you're born, you have debt. And then he named the persons who one is indebted to, following the personalities or examples. Devarshi Bhutapta Nirnam Pratinam. We're indebted, and you don't carry debt, you eliminate debt. Fire, debt, and disease, they're to be attended to immediately. Fire, debt, and disease. So you don't let it go. So what do? You attend to it. Now the verse, then Prabhupada would explain, but you take shelter of Krishna, you're debt-free. No more debt. So, we're going to be hearing multiple times, over and over, the indebtedness, the duty that Ram feels to his father, and others are going to say indebtedness to them, indebtedness to Kaushalya, you're indebted to me too, and Sita, you're indebted to me too, and how do you reconcile debts? Well, become a Hare Krishna devotee and you don't have any more debts. I'm a free man or free lady. I can Hari Bol however I like, and I don't have duties to anybody. Except Krishna. So how do we, as Kali Yuga born, striving to become Vaishnavas in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and following our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada, how do we take this Bhagavatam verse that says you're debt-free and all these teachings that we're going to hear really strongly from the Supreme Lord about duty? The question is clear. In one sense, it's an artificial tension. In another sense, it's a tension. The sense of duty to Krishna. And the duty to others. In different categories. So I have my thoughts on this, but I also shared the question with some of my dear God brothers, those that are particularly deep thinkers and well-read in scripture and very good at guiding others in Krishna consciousness. And I found there's quite a spectrum of responses from those exalted personalities. So I'll share some of that. This elevated verse, Devarshi Bhutapta Nirnam Pratrinam, indicated in the way that Prabhupada has translated it also is for persons who are cent%, like squeaky clean, no 2 feet in 2 different boats. They have both feet in one boat. They're fully dedicated. Specifically even those in the renounced order. However, there are some in the Grihastha ashram that are fully dedicated and fully absorbed in just one thing. Husband and wife together, totally focused on one thing. So it's not ashram specific, although sannyas ashram is meant especially for that. Full dedication, body, mind, and words, everything. So, one response is, this is speaking about debt, but it's not speaking about responsibility. You may do things because it's the responsible thing to do without a sense of debt or indebtedness, and I have to pay off my debts. But it's just responsible life, and particularly in the household ashram, it is a life of responsibility. Of course, living as a devotee in any ashram is a life of responsibility, but with the Grihastha ashram comes its own set of responsibilities. And one should live one's life in a responsible manner, not burdened by debt, but in a responsible manner. Sometimes this verse, or the implication of this verse, is used as a stick to whack people and say, just join the temple. You know, Bhagavatam says you're free from debt, just come on over here and you don't have to pay taxes and you don't have to be responsible, you just serve Krishna in Haribol. So it can be used in that kind of manner, and at least in the past it was used in that manner. It's kind of changed for the better. But some people also take shelter of the verse due to the difficulty of carrying out a responsible life, and they'd rather be irresponsible and take shelter of this verse in another wrong kind of way. Then it can be another wrong kind of way. There are persons that are, let's say, the yuga this is being spoken from and about is Dwarpa Yuga, where the process is yajna combined with fastidious observance of duty. And then the present age is Kali Yuga, where people, it's just a notion of faults, and therefore a very simple Yuga Dharma is given, and that's where our primary faith should go. It's different Yuga, different set of circumstances, different conditions. So supposing there are such people, such devotees, that are very inspired by this high standard of dharma and religious duty and living this way, and they should be encouraged. At the same time, when they turn 50, bell rings, and then you go in a different direction, and then another bell rings, and you go in a different direction, and follow that through all the way. And in the meanwhile, between now and 50, don't diminish the core hearing and chanting activities and the missionary activities while you're doing this very strict following. And then the right time comes, continue with the mission and the rest of what the lighter stages of life are made up of. Go to literally, go to the forest and wear tree bark and read the Bhagavatam about Vanaprastha life. It's in the 7th canto, the last section of the 7th canto. You know, the different orders of life. Somebody, nice couple, they asked me one time, we're over 50, what's the duties of Vanaprastha? So I pointed them to that chapter, and it was, yikes! And you know, it's for a different age. It's not, there are principles involved, but it's the application of those principles. So I discussed this our first morning. The application of these principles need proper guidance, and I'm just trying to give some general, directional type of messages here. Those that wish to follow, follow. And those that wish to, and then follow all the way. And those that wish to take a conventional approach, things that our founder Acharya gave his followers to do, and it wasn't all of these details and details and details, it was principles of simple living, high thinking. And in other words, ISKCON has this capacity, the Hare Krishna movement, followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and followers of Srila Prabhupada has this capacity to accept and encourage different positions. But at the same time, there's primary, however you wish to model your life, so you follow direction. And those giving direction should know the nature of the individual to give corresponding direction. This is a teaching from Hari Bhakti Vilas by Sanatana Goswami. And the example of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he would encourage some to do this and some to do that and others to do another thing, according to their nature. So we need to receive guidance. We need guidance. And how we as individuals apply ourselves to these high standards of Dharma, and we should be respectful of others that may do differently. And then those that do so differently should be respectful of those that do so in this other way. So the goal and the place of shelter is what's important. And following instructions, how to apply the principles of Dharma, should be under the guidance of a qualified Brahmana and Vaishnav. Another point, two other points, balancing the intensity of following of Dharma, on the other side, Devarshi Bhutaptra Niram Pratrinam. There's somewhere towards the middle of that a Bhagavad Gita verse, chapter 16, where Krishna is encouraging performance of duty for gradual elevation. 16, verse 23, 24. And without observance of duty, then we can't achieve happiness, perfection, nor the supreme destination. I'm bringing this up because I'm anticipating some persons who are hearing in not necessarily a balanced way, thinking, I have to be like Ram, or I have to be like Kaushalya, or I have to be like Sita, or I have to be like Lakshmana, I have to imitate somebody I'm not, and then get confused when it may not at all be appropriate for that somebody. It happens, and then they feel guilty and walk away sad instead of enlivened. Partly the reason. So, but also for sake of clarity, how do we hear all of this message properly? One other prelude to all of this is a reminder of something that Janaka said to Ram at the time of the marriage of Sita and Ram. He said, "Your wife Sita will be a faithful, chaste wife. She's been trained by the royal family. She knows the duties of a queen, and she will fulfill those duties like a shadow, following the object." And then he used this term, Dharma Charani. Dharma Charani means that she will assist her husband in upholding Dharma when he gets it right, and equally strongly, she'll assist him to get back to the codes of Dharma if he gets off. So she's going to exhibit from her position of love and obedience to her father and to Dasarath and to her husband. She gets a little strong. Dharma Charani, Sita. And he yields. Part of his qualification. I wanted one other term that, and then we'll just go to the pastimes. A term that is spoken about Ram is Maryada Purushottama. Purushottama we're familiar with, the Supreme Person. So the Maryada Purushottama means the Supreme Person who, by actions, by achar, and by his words, prachar, he establishes the boundaries of social convention. So, the ideal king in Treta Yuga is establishing the boundaries for an ideal king. So, he's fulfilling his function. And he does so very strongly, like we discussed in the morning about Kaikeyi was the immovable obstacle in the fulfilling the requests of Dasarath. In this case, the persons most dear to Lord Ram want to move the mountain. He won't move. He won't move, and he won't move. And they say some really heavy things, and he won't move. He won't move. Because he's setting this Maryada Purushottama, the standards, the Supreme Personality of proper conduct, literally. Proper conduct. So, glorification after glorification of his speech, his even temperament, his ability to give just dealing to all according to their position, his ability to speak in such a way according to position. He's going to say some things to Sita about the way that Kaikeyi spoke with him. He wasn't oblivious to the way she was speaking to him, insultingly, in front of his father. He was well aware of the behavior and speech of Kaikeyi, but he didn't retaliate. He's powerful. He's more powerful than she is by far, but he didn't. Now, part of what he didn't do is he understood, like the demigods understood, there was a higher purpose here. But he's, in addition, so there's multiple layers of things going on aside from the higher purpose of leave, to go, to kill Ravana because that's what the demigods want, and Kaikeyi was there for that purpose, and Mantra was there for that purpose, and he's aware, but he's also teaching. Maryada Purushottama. So we need guidance. There isn't an exception. We need guidance from a qualified person. And for Ram, that qualified person in the past time is his father. So now we're going to go to the section of Valmiki Ramayana where Ram has left the chamber of Kaikeyi, following her direction to leave for the forest immediately before the end of the day, because it was this early morning, before the end of the day. Don't let one day pass. Get out. And Bharata is going to come. Two things. So he says, I need your permission to go take permission from my mother, because my father has said I want to go to my mother and to Sita. So there's three persons, now, again referring to the topic that we discussed this morning, and the karuna bhav of sorrow and lamentation, and the disturbance of mind that comes from that. Each one of the three, as we mentioned in the morning, they undergo their version of that and end up loving Rama all the more. Although they want to move the mountain, and when the mountain doesn't move, they love the mountain even more. They honor him for who he is. They love him. In different ways they love him. And they speak in different ways to exhibit their love for him, but that's the end, and the sorrowful situation strengthens their love for him, and deepens their thought of him in a different way than before, but here we go. As Ram was contemplating going from Kaikeyi's palace to Kaushalya's palace, how to speak in such a way that he knows his mother's feelings are going to be hurt, how to minimize that. He's considering how to not speak in such a way that it would be construed, possibly, that he objected to Dasaratha's direction for him. He fully embraces it. He's happy about his father's direction. His mind is firm normally. He's very gentle, but he knows he has to be very firm. And so he hears, but he's very firm. So he enters Kaushalya's chamber where she is, and he sees that all night long she's been fasting, awake, engaging in worship of Vishnu and offering prayers, sacred prayers with the guidance of brahmanas. She's surrounded by brahmanas and the sacred fire, and her whole evening long is dedicated for the generating auspiciousness for her son's coronation that very day, the day after it was announced that it was going to happen. Ram comes before her and bows at her feet. Kaushalya stands and embraces her son and says some very appropriate and pleasing words. May you attain the age and fame of the virtuous royal sages who have gone before you in our line. Royal sages means kings that are both Raja but also Rishi. Very qualified kings, very qualified learned persons. May you attain the same virtue and valor and longevity as them. She invites him to sit with her for some time, take a little breaking of the fast from the evening with her, and then go off to see the noble King Dasarath, because today is the happy day. Now his face doesn't show any unhappiness, so she doesn't know by his face. Face is the index to the mind. She doesn't see any sign of any problem. But he doesn't waste any time. He tells her, my dear mother, there won't be a coronation today. Rather, Bharata is being called back from his grandparents' home, and he will be coronated the king, and I, this very day, will be going to the forest to live as an ascetic for 14 years, according to the indication of Dasarath and Kaikeyi. So there's a series of back and forths. Kaushalya is hearing this for the first time, and she was seated. She just fell over on the floor, unconscious. Ram went to pick her up and console her. Lakshmana is in the room, the three of them are together, and now Kaikeyi begins her first expressions of emotion. And just put it in bullet points because the text is very long in Valmiki Ramayana. She describes the sorrow-filled life that she has, sorrow-filled life that she has led. Remember from the term from this morning. She was without a child for a long, long time. And for a barren woman, that's very difficult. Finally, good fortune came. She had a son. And the son was the firstborn, potentially to become, or everyone thought he would become the next king, because that's what the Ikshvaku dynasty has done since the beginning of time. Thinking that one day you will become the king, I was able to carry on my life. Although I was the elder queen, my co-queens and co-wives treated me very badly. They spoke bad things to me, they spoke bad things to my servants, but I was carrying on with the hope that one day you'll become king. Even while you at my side, I have been despised by the others. What will it be like if you're not here? Surely I'll have to die. This is his mother, who he loves very much. Because Dasarath didn't care so much for me, he basically ignored me. He treated me at a lower level than Kaikeyi's servants. After Bharata becomes the king, my servants won't even talk to me. How can I live my life in that circumstance? Kaikeyi, she's already been a constant source of anger and speaking harshly to me and anybody related to me. How will I carry on? I'm elderly. I can't bear this. way of living. And if I'm not able to see your face, how can I carry on with my life? Then she says, I think my heart must be very hard, since it does not split open upon hearing this news. Now, citing this in particular because in the Sthayi Bhav chapter of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of Rupa Goswami, he specifically refers to a verse that says almost exactly the same thing in relation to Krishna's Leela, where someone says, and he refers to it, it's a stimulation for ecstatic love, it's a symptom of bhava. She's expressing bhava, although what she's expressing is sorrow. She's expressed, the person in Krishna Leela says, after seeing Krishna in the coils of the Kaliya serpent, and I'm still living, my heart must be as hard as stone. So it's lamentation. It's another category than sorrow, or it's a particular variety of sorrow when the object of love is in some position of difficulty. One feels very sorrowful for them. And there's varieties and subcategories of those varieties of this ecstatic emotion. It sounds like, the thoughts of a selfish lady, but it's ecstatic. Because Ram is at the center of it, that's why. Her object of attachment is Ram, not her happiness. I shall follow you into the forest. And she wailed grievously. Lakshmana is hearing all this. Lakshmana explodes. Really chivalrous talk. It ends up with, I'll kill Dasarath. He's speaking to Kaushalya to calm Kaushalya, and then after hearing Lakshman speak, she speaks about what Lakshman spoke. So it's for her benefit. He's speaking to Ram, but for the benefit of Kaushalya's grieving heart, because he loves Kaushalya as he loves his mother. So he starts railing against Dasarath. Dasarath lost his mind. He's an old senile person. He's in his second childhood, doesn't know what he's saying. You shouldn't listen to him. How can he, covered by lust for Kaikeyi, agree to such a preposterous idea? You would send somebody into exile when they've done something terribly bad. What has Ram done? There's no justification for what Dasarath has said he should go to the forest for 14 years. For one who is intent on righteousness, how can he abandon his perfect son? It's the wrong idea. It's an immature idea. Don't follow it. Before anyone comes to understand of this diabolical plot, let me loose. I'll immediately see that anybody that stands in the way of your coronation is killed. Don't doubt the power that I have in my arms and my skill of archery. You've seen, we've done archery together. I'll do it. And if there's a rebellion, I'll knock everybody down. Look out, here I come. In our Ikvaku line, it has always been the firstborn son becomes the king. How does Dasarath have the authority to violate that family tradition? I'll not hear of it. Ram, you will see my valor. I shall kill my senile father whose mind is attached to Kaikeyi. His mind has become wretched in his second childhood and contemptible due to his senility. Whoa! Kaikeyi, just watch me. Kaikeyi then speaks a second time, agreeing with Lakshmana, saying, don't leave. You'll abandon me in this terrible condition of grief. If you wish to do what is right, you're noble, you want to abide by that which is righteous, then remain here and protect me. That's your highest duty. So she's invoking her privileges as his mother and elder and the queen. I do not give you permission to go to the forest. And again she says, it's better if I go with you. I'll live by eating grass. If you, then the opposite, if you go, leaving me afflicted, she threatens suicide. I'll sit here, fast till death, and not be able to survive. And then you will have the sin of killing your mother. And you'll go to the darkest position of hell for killing your mother. He's getting it pretty heavy. These persons are very dear to him, dearmost, his mother and Lakshmana. Slowly he addresses many of the points, but he's immovable. I'm unable to disobey the command of my father. I propitiate you, bow my head at your feet. I shall go to the forest. Then he gives examples, scriptural examples of others who have been obedient to a difficult instruction of their father. One of them we heard, Parshuram. Well, we didn't get to this part when we told the story of Parshuram. Renuka, when going to the river one day, saw one Gandharva, and the Gandharva became attracted to her. She didn't do anything or say anything, but her mind was flattered by his being attracted to her. Janmashtami knew this. When she came back, he said, you sinful woman, I instruct my sons, cut off her head. They wouldn't do it. Parshuram cut off her head. And then Janmashtami said, you please me very much. Ask for a benediction. Put her head back on and make her alive again. So he did that. And she didn't even remember anything happened. We also heard earlier about King Sagara. He had 60,000 sons, and he told them, find that horse, whatever it takes. And when they took it literally, they were disrupting the whole earth. They created a lot of enmity. They were digging, and they made the oceans according to that description in the Bhagavatam. But they were following the order of their father, whatever the consequences may be. And another one is a learned forest sage Kandu. His father gave an instruction to kill a cow, and he killed the cow. Sage, Brahmana, killed the cow on the instruction of his father to do so. The detail of that historical event isn't told, and I don't know it. But Rama is invoking, it's not just I'm inventing some kind of an idea that's, Dharma as it should be as per your son Ramachandra, this is what great authorities have done. I'm just following. I will not deviate from the instruction of my father. That's to his mother. Then he turns to Lakshmana and says many, many things, a long list of things. But give up this ignoble plan of taking over the kingdom by your prowess and chivalry. Taking shelter of duty, don't resort to this kind of severity. My resolution must be fulfilled. Because he knows the heart of Lakshmana. Lakshmana isn't going to act against Ram's instruction. Our father's anxiety is that I may not obey his words. Now that's not exactly. Dasarath really wants him to disobey his word. He said, I gave my word, I have to keep my word, but you don't have to. You didn't give your word. So just disobey. That'll make me happy. But he's saying, my father's anxiety is I might disobey. And Kaikeyi's anxiety is she wants me to leave so she can get Bharata installed. And I can't give anxiety to my mother and father. Speaking of Kaikeyi as mother. So, Lakshmana, I must leave. So, Ram again, second time petitions Kaushalya, please give me your permission. For the second time she says, no. I do not give you permission to abandon me in misery. I would prefer to have your association than to possess the entire creation. So he's asked twice, she's refused twice. He's now going to respond to her second refusal. He shows anger to a mother. First, but he speaks to Lakshmana. Lakshmana, I know of your devotion and valor. However, you're not understanding my purpose. And you, along with my mother, are torturing me. Yes, my mother, it is my duty to serve and obey you. But I've already given my pledge to my father to follow his order, so I'll do that. When I come back, you can order me however you want, and I'll do whatever you want. When I come back, I'll come back. Then summarizing, I'm completely incapable of not fulfilling my father's order. And you want to come with me to the forest? While the king is still alive, can the queen go to the forest as if she's now a widow? Her duty is to be by the side of her king. Serve the king. That's the queen's duty. So again, I'm requesting you permission to go to the forest. I shall not accept sovereignty over the entire earth coming out of unrighteousness. He's immovable. Then he turns to Lakshmana and says basically, Kaikeyi has always been very kind, very pleasing in her speech, very gentle, very loving. This behavior of hers, a princess of gentle nature and rare qualities, speaking like a vulgar woman, tormenting me before my father. It's not Kaikeyi, it's something else. It's providential. So don't blame Kaikeyi. She's just the instrument of the will of providence. says something worth writing down. An inconceivable situation is definitely the result of destiny and cannot be obstructed by any created being. I'll say it again. Any inconceivable situation is definitely the result of destiny and cannot be obstructed by any created being. I accept this as the will of destiny. I'm not disturbed. For me, sovereignty and exile are the same. He's equipoised. And he means it, and he is equipoised. Even in the face of Lakshmana's saying and Kaushalya saying, Lakshmana doesn't want to hear this. He said, what valiant warrior just rolls over and says, oh, it's destiny. Kesara Sara. That's not a Kshatriya. You're powerful. And I'm by your side, and I'm powerful. And you're the firstborn son, and you're to become king, and everyone loves you, and it's been proclaimed, everyone's expecting it. And you say destiny? You can go to the forest. After you become king and rule for thousands of years, then your sons become the king, and then you can go to the forest, if it's destiny. Timing isn't right. Don't go to the forest. Now, remember from our discussion yesterday about Bharata and Lakshmana. Lakshmana's a servant. He's not going to budge from the position of being Ram's servant, but he's, choosing how he wants to serve Ram and trying to steer Ram this direction instead of that direction. Now, Bharata does the same, but his mood is not like this. Kaushalya sees that the mountain is immovable. He's not going to change. So then she appeals once again, take me with you. And he says again, your duty is to serve Dasarath. After I've gone, how's Dasarath going to feel? You have to console him. It's your duty. You're his queen. One who does like that, she'll attain the highest destination. One who doesn't do like that will go to hell. I don't want to see you go to hell. Stay with your husband and do your duty. Do your duty. Finally, Kaushalya, out of the three, she says, all right, I give my blessings. You may go to the forest. May your life be successful, upholding the principles of Dharma, O righteous son. Now it's Lakshmana's turn. I want to go with you. He says to Lakshmana, you need to stay here and take care of our mothers. They'll need your presence. Then he accompanies Ram to go see Sita. And he gives Sita, in this description, he's showing physical signs of he's disturbed. He's disturbed primarily because he doesn't want to disturb her. So his face is sullen and gloomy. His head is hanging down, all these body posture things indicating something's wrong. His face is pale. He's perspiring. And she sees there's no servants. He's coming alone. There's no white umbrella. He's not decorated with the sign of the king. He's not decorated with sandal paste after having undergone all the preliminary rituals for the installation. There's no kings and ministers. My dear Ram, what's the situation? Right away, I've been ordered by my fathers to go to the Dandak forest, and Bharata is going to be installed in my place as the king. Be very dutiful. You stay here and take care of our mothers, and I'll be back sooner than you can think. Remain firm. Gives a list of all what our duties should be and says specifically, honor Bharata properly. For you to stay in the kingdom, you can't show him any disrespect. You should only show him proper and due respect as the king. So now she does her Dharma Charnani program. She does it twice. My dear Ram, your advice is not worth hearing. My dear Ram, a wife shares the fortune, good fortune, ill fortune of her husband. It doesn't matter to me, king or forest. I'm your wife. I'm with you wherever you are. And for the married woman, you're my only shelter. Are you suggesting that I accept someone other than you as my shelter? That's not Dharma. If you leave today, I'll walk in front of you with my feet. I'll crush all the sharp blades of kusha grass and the thorns so everything is soft for your walking. My dear Ram, there's no sin in me that merits that I must be separated from you like this. I'll be happy being in the forest as much as I would be in my father's palace or here in Ayodhya. For me, it's not a problem. Because he had said to Kaushalya, no difficulty. I won't have any difficulty in forest life and observing celibacy and enjoying with you. And you're all powerful. You're going to say, I know you're going to say it, it's difficult. And you're powerful. You can protect anyone, everyone. Certainly you can protect me. Long section, Ram describes the hardship of forest life. Sita gets even more intense. I have to accompany you in pursuance of the order given by my parents and your parents. Previously, when I was living in my father's house, I heard a prophecy from Brahmanas that I would have to dwell in the forest. And since then, I've been always eagerly waiting for the opportunity to live in the forest. Again, when I was a young girl in my father's house, I heard the same prediction in the presence of my mother from a woman ascetic. Do you remember? On many occasions I've asked you, let's go stay in the forest. And you said yes. Even after her husband dies, the man to whom her parents have given as husband, she continues to be the wife of. Wherever I am, if I'm with you, it's heaven, and if I'm without you, wherever that place is hell. Take me along with you. She's gotten strong. She's played different roles, different voices. Ram doesn't relent. Then she gets, really feisty. I pity greatly the ignorant masses of Ayodhya who consider you their hero and glorify you. If my father Janaka were here, he would have surely felt that he had mistakenly married his daughter to a woman claiming to be a man. How, in your absence, could I tolerate the people falsely saying, it seems that strength and valor are lacking in Ram, as he could not protect his own dear wife? I will not cast my eyes on another man even in thought. How could you ever consider delivering me for protection to another? Whew. She's heavy. The Sri Vaishnava Acharyas have a fantastic time describing this exchange. And one of there's multiple, but one of them that I like particularly mentioned. She's taking three different positions. One of the goddess of fortune. She cannot be separated from Narayana. Sita can't be separated from Ram. It's not possible. Another is the voice of the living entity. She's a worshipper of God. And the living entity, Krishna conscious living entity, can't be separated from God. It's impossible. And she also takes the position of instructor, guru. She's instructing him. Sita shows that the primary responsibility of guru is to correct a mistake and show the right path. And she's crying and crying and crying, and Ram says, I can't stand to cause you pain like this. Although I've given all my reasons, I can understand that you won't be able to maintain your life if you don't come with me, so you can come with me. Yay! The sun comes out and the clouds part, and Sita's first order of business is to give away all their possessions because they're going to the forest. Finally, Lakshmana. He wants to come. Ram says no for the following reasons. Who's going to take care of Kaushalya and Sumitra? He doesn't mention Kaikeyi because presumably Bharata would be there. But his mother, Sumitra, and Ram's mother, Kaushalya, who will take care of them? By serving your superiors, your devotion to me will be properly shown, and you will receive unequaled merit. Do this for my sake. You know, the master-servant relationship. Lakshmana says, Bharat will take care of them. He's been always respectful to both Kaushalya and Sumitra. If, after obtaining the kingdom, Bharata is misled due to malice or pride and doesn't care for Kaushalya, I'll come back and kill him. And Kaushalya, she's very intelligent. She'll, not in Kaushalya's presence at the time, she's capable of supporting herself. There have been thousands of villages given to each of the queens for their personal maintenance. Sometimes this is done for deities. The deity is given title to some tracts of land and the products of the deities. The land goes to the deities, so they'll be maintained. And while we're in the forest together, I'll look after everything. You and Sita can take rest. I'll stay awake and provide protection. So Ram agrees. He understands Lakshmana isn't going to be away from me. So he agrees. And then he instructs Lakshmana, Sita's already started, give away all your possessions. So they do that and mention, there's two in particular, the son of Vashishta, and a Brahmana and son of Vashishta, whose name is Suyagya. He seems to be one of the principal persons that is recipient of charity. And the sons of Vishwamitra and Agastya, and the Chitra Ratha, the charioteer and minister. Then some pages are spent describing one very poor brahmana of the name Trijata. You know the story? Trijata. In the dynasty of Garga. He was very thin and pale. He had no possessions. He carried an axe and a spade, and he would dig up roots to eat. His young wife approached Trijata and said, "Go to Ram. Ask him for charity. He's giving away, I heard he's giving away everything. And maybe we'll be able to live a little differently." So he went. And when he approached Sri Ram, he said, "I'm destitute, I have many children. My means of livelihood has failed, and therefore I have to live in the wilderness. Look at me." Ram said, "I have not even given away 1,000 cows yet. I shall give you as many cows as you can cover by throwing your stick." So he was carrying a stick. So Trijata tightened his belt, got ready, wired himself up, and threw the stick as far as he could, and it landed in the middle of the cow pasture. And the stick covered many cows, and Ram said, "They all belong to you now." Ram embraced Trijata and said, "This test was only, I was having some fun. I wanted to see your strength, which was hard to imagine. And therefore, I tested you in this way. If you want anything else, just ask for it." And Trijata said, "I don't need anything else. You've been very merciful. Your embrace was the best." So, commentary says, Ram wanted to show the world that a brahmana does not beg from inadequacy or weakness, but rather by begging, he gives the opportunity for the prosperous to serve. Nice point. So they're possessionless, ready to go to the forest. And now one more visit to the palace of Dasarath. And we'll hear about that tonight. Now, you're going to be visiting some places today, and you heard all the warnings about don't do this and that and the other thing, and it's, you won't get in if you don't comply with their restrictions. There's the high security has its reasons, it's for the protection of the pilgrims that come, because there could be some other people that have other purposes, and sure Ram will protect you. Srila Prabhupada ki, Shri Ramachandra ki, Gaur Premanandi.